Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is right here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day to leave the cult of Scientology. Guys, we're talking about Russia today. I get questions or comments about Scientology in Russia all the time. Scientology is banned. Scientology was shut down. Scientology was not banned in Russia, actually. Scientology was not shut down in Russia. But if there's anywhere where the government is at war with Scientology, it's hard to say that any government is at war with Scientology more than Russia. The organizations in St. Petersburg and Moscow were raided. The leading Scientologists, the staff members, the executive directors of the organizations were prosecuted. And there was an update, a blog post done this week by historian Chris Owens on this subject that I wanted to cover with you, because it's hard to know what's going on in Russia with respect to Scientology. I have had basically no success getting in touch with Scientologists in Russia, under the radar Scientologists in Russia, former Scientologists who were in Scientology in Russia within the last few years. Basically nothing, total crickets. So I was excited to see Chris Owens do an update about this. I want to show you real quick. This is a book, not Chris Owens, I'm sorry, Chris Owen. This is a book, one of the books that Chris Owen has written on the subject of Scientology is Ron, the War Hero, the true story of L. Ron Hubbard's calamitous military career. That book is amazing. And I've actually a few years ago on my channel did some videos reading some chapters of that book. Highly recommend it to everyone. If I can remember to do so, I'm going to put the link to the Amazon book in the description down below. But one more time, it's Ron the War Hero, the true story of L. Ron Hubbard's calamitous military career. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the blog post that Chris Owen did this week. Not going to read you the whole thing. I've gone through it and just highlighted or selected some paragraphs. Okay, so the writing seemed to be on the wall for Scientology after the Russian police declared Scientology to be an undesirable group, raided the Moscow and St. Petersburg orgs, charged a number of prominent Russian Scientologists with criminal offenses. The 5 St. Petersburg Scientologists charged in 2020 were put on trial on charges of creating an extremist community, inciting interfaith hatred, and carrying out illegal business activities. They were said to have earned more than 276 million rubles, about $3 million at current exchange rates, over several years. The state also sought the confiscation of $360,000 in cash found at the St. Petersburg org. Guys, I kid you not, if my recollection serves me correct, that money was found in a duffel bag, hidden in the ceiling tiles at a church of Scientology. What in the hell is going on over there? I mean, I was hoping to hear a lot of the details about what exactly was uncovered in the trials and the prosecutions, and perhaps Chris Owen will be able at some point to help make all that public. But if the details have been reported, I have not seen them. And if anyone finds the details reported somewhere, please send them to me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. It says, to the surprise of observers and apparently the prosecution, the case ended anticlimactically in August 2023. Guys, that's only like 6 months ago. All of the defendants were found guilty and the money was confiscated, but the punishments were far less than prosecutors had asked for. The head of the St. Petersburg org, Ivan Matsitsky, Ivan Matsitsky, was sentenced to 6.5 years in a penal colony, but was released as he had already spent an equivalent amount of time in pre-trial detention. Guys, I may not know much, but it sure sounds to me like this is saying the head of the org in St. Petersburg spent 6.5 years in pre-trial detention. How is that not some of the biggest news in the world of Scientology? That is unbelievable. Okay. The remaining defendants, Executive Director Galina Shuranova, Office of Special Affairs Head Anastasia Tarantieva, her deputy, in other words, the deputy head of the Office of Special Affairs, Constantia Isulkova, and the chief accountant, Shahib Aliyev. were fined sums of between 600,000 to 1.3 million rubles. Okay, that's only $6,500 to $14,000, despite the state asking for up to 30 years imprisonment. The court ruled that the statute of limitations had expired and reprieved the defendants from any further punishment. Now, look, as an ignorant American who has a very American-centric view of the world, I grew up in a cult, guys, don't blame me. I can tell you that when I read this paragraph, I'm like, wait, what? So the government chose to go after Scientology, and then they were prosecuting Scientology, and then the judge was just like, "Oop, statute of limitations has expired." I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, is I'm a little bit shocked that this article, this blog post, seems to indicate that there may actually, in some cases, be separation of power in the government. I don't know how they do it in Russia, but executive, legislative, and judicial. So is there some independence between the executive and the judicial? Because anyway, let's keep going. He does speculate as to why this might have occurred this way. The outcome of the case was a disappointment for the investigators of Russia's FSB, the country's domestic security agency and successor to the KGB. The FSB had carried out the original raid on the St. Petersburg org in 2016. An FSB major was one of the lead investigators, told Evgeny Kolesnikov from the Russian newspaper Versia, that in his opinion, the investigation was very weak, formal, and lazy. After all, the operational officers provided the investigation with bags full of documents that could have been used to initiate many more criminal cases. For example, this one is crazy, incitement to suicide. Wow. Several adherents of the Church of Scientology committed suicide because they took out loans for all sorts of training, could not repay them, and were simply squeezed by debt collectors. Terrible things were happening. The major expressed incredulity that the statute of limitations had expired and complained that the investigation chose the most convenient criminal articles lying on the surface rather than digging deeper. In particular, although the FSB found evidence of the St. Petersburg branch of the Office of Special Affairs carrying out actions against ex-Scientologists, it did not follow up. The FSB in Russia took issue with Scientology's Office of Special Affairs in Russia carrying out Scientology's fair game tactics against ex-Scientologists. This is kind of mind-blowing, in my opinion. Okay, so he does, the article goes on with the FSB colonel or general or whatever criticizing the investigation, which I got to be honest, to me, just with the American system of law enforcement and, the police building a case and then turning it over to the prosecutor to prosecute the case, and the case gets, decided in front of a judge and a jury. The language in here does confuse me a little bit. Because what the article refers to as the investigation, to me, sounds like the trial. I found it a little confusing, but I think it's because of the differences between the US and Russia. I don't think it's a translation problem. Okay, but let's see. There's some really other interesting stuff here. Okay, let's see. Very interestingly, Kolesnikov says that prior to 2016, when the St. Petersburg org was raided, Scientology enjoyed protection from multiple sources. He writes, I remember the ladies, so like the lady, the head of the org, her absolute confidence in her impunity, or rather the entire organization's impunity, and different roofs were mentioned. And so you see these are two big, strong dudes holding up a roof, which is a form of protection. The concept of roof in Russian, a krish, I don't know if it's krisha or krisha, is a central organizing principle of Putin's Russia. It's a principle that emerged from the Russian mafia in the 90s and has since become central to the entire Russian state. A krisha is how I want to say that. A krisha is essentially protection provided by powerful individuals or organizations, whether organized criminals or state officials. An estimated 80% of Russian businesses purchase krishas to protect themselves from being targeted by criminal gangs or corrupt officials. It is not cheap and can cost anything from 30% to 70% of the purchaser's profits. Given the universality of corruption in Russia, it is not surprising that Scientology would be involved in buying creches. It would be a natural component of Scientology's safe pointing procedure, which it follows internationally, in which it seeks to obtain protection by recruiting powerful local allies, especially from law enforcement organizations like the LAPD in the United States. I think that's just a perfect analogy. Okay, so check this out. The more interesting question is why Scientology's creches did not protect it from being raided in the first place in 2016. Kolesnikov writes that he interviewed the same FSB major in 2016 and asked him, why only now and not earlier? He answered unexpectedly, frankly, but briefly, quote, order from the very top. A kreisha can be broken by someone with a superior kreisha. In this instance, it almost certainly points to the long-serving head of the FSB, Alexander Bortnikov, likely acting to fulfill Putin's 2012 call for a crackdown on groups such as Scientology. But why was the investigation apparently botched from the start? And why were the defendants given such light punishments? The outcome of the case suggests that the Russian authorities were never particularly serious about cracking down on Scientology and had carried out the raids for essentially performative reasons, what the Russians call a mask show, to keep Putin and the Russian Orthodox Church happy. The legal pressure exerted by the Russian authorities by declaring Scientology an extremist group is likely to have been far more significant than the raids. Okay, there was one other paragraph towards the end of this thing that I wanted to share. How about this? It is not clear why the FSB apparently lost interest in pursuing the investigation, but the most likely explanation is that its priorities, and therefore the allocation of resources, changed between 2016 and 2024. The war in Ukraine may have been a major factor in this. Okay. The rapid disposal of the case likely indicates that for the Russian authorities, it had become a nuisance that needed to be gotten out of the way. Ironically, the war in Ukraine may end up benefiting Scientology in Russia in the short term. Wow. Lesser issues such as Scientology and the threat of terrorism have clearly been given a lower priority, with tragic consequences that were visible in the failure to prevent the ISIS attack on Moscow's Crocus City Hall in March 2024. All right. The St. Petersburg Scientologists have regained their freedom, though not their wealth. This, however, does not mean that they are clear of danger. While the baleful attention of the FSB has turned elsewhere for the moment, Russia's drift into totalitarianism will mean that Scientology's long-term future in Russia remains in doubt. So there you go. An excellent article. I will say that I find it startling that given all of the actions and the raids and the prosecutions and putting them on an extremist list, I find it amazing that the Russian Scientology organizations in St. Petersburg and Moscow are still allowed to be open and continue to do business as normal. Not because I think the government should have the power to completely ban and shut down an organization. I just find it amazing as an American who has a generally American-centric view of the world and has a particularly American-centric idea of Russia and how things work over there. By the way, I have been to Russia. I did visit Moscow. I got some nice stories about that. I just find it incredible that this authoritarian, totalitarian state takes all these actions against Scientology, but still allows them to exist. They take what is described in this article as performative actions to satisfy Putin and the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church. And I go, but why performative? Why not just do the real thing? Like, I don't know. Do you guys understand where I'm coming from? Like, even in America, when I talk about, taking Scientology down or putting an end to Scientology, I'm really talking about taking away their tax exemption. Scientology is a failing organization and is failing under its own self, its own weight. We're really just speeding up the process. Them having tax exemption prolongs the organization's lifespan. Even with tax exemption, Scientology is dying a pretty steady death. You take away the tax exemption, you take away a certain protection that they enjoy in the courts. You increase their operating costs by about 100x. Right now, all they have to pay is electric bills and water bills. They don't even have to pay staff. But if they had to pay property taxes on the billions of dollars of real estate, Scientology would go broke pretty quickly because, quite frankly, they don't make enough money to pay the property tax bills. They don't even make enough money from operations to pay the electric bill. Management usually has to step in on some sort of emergency basis, or they have to fundraise money from the public just to pay the electric bill. You add tens of millions of dollars of property taxes annually, Scientology is going to die a pretty quick death. Plus, once you remove some of those protections they enjoy in the courts, you get some criminal prosecutions, you get some huge judgments, you get more and more civil lawsuits. Scientology is going to die. But that's in America. That's in the Western world. In Russia, you'd think they just snap their fingers and get rid of the organization, and yet they don't. And I happen to find that fascinating. Scientology is completely illegal in China. There ain't no Scientology in China. Yes, it's in Taiwan, but Taiwan isn't really China. I mean, it is if you're Chinese, but if you're Taiwanese, then it's not. And Kaohsiung, Taiwan actually is one of the busiest expanding growing areas for Scientology in the world, believe it or not. In fact, just a week or two ago at the annual L. Ron Hubbard birthday celebration event, the organization in Kaohsiung, Taiwan was awarded was given the award as the fastest growing organization in Scientology over the past year. They won the birthday game, is what they call it. So interesting stuff out of Russia. At this point, I consider Chris Owen to be the leading authority on what's happening in Russia. Guys, you under the radar Scientologists out there in Russia, please get in touch. Let me know what the hell's going on. What is it like to be a Scientologist in Russia these days? What is it like to, be in the org as a public or a staff member? How many staff members are there in St. Petersburg or Moscow? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 100? Back in the 90s, these orgs in Russia used to be huge. They used to be some of the biggest organizations in Scientology in the world. I'm just dying to know what they look like now. I have not been able to get any information. All right, let's jump over to the comments and we'll wrap this one up. Lily Rose. Aaron, I've been watching your videos for 9 years now, and I'm still watching, but not always commenting. Lily, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sticking around this entire time. Thank you for continuing to watch, and thank you for commenting. I'm glad to see you in here. Casey says, woo to the who. Awesome second video of Aaron's today that I got an alert for on time. I hope it continues. Well, guys, help me out. If you're watching right now, we got 1,328 people watching. Hit that like button. Jump into the comment section jump into the comment section and give it a comment. Let's help YouTube push out those notifications. I much appreciate it. Susanna Dana. Wait, Susanna Dana is a new channel member. Welcome, Susanna Dana. Destroying Cults says, Bud, don't forget to check your email. You will find a surprise. I've been staying up to date on my emails the last day or two, so I will check. I'll look out for something from you, Destroying Cults. Thank you very much. Let's see, what is this? Erica M says, if people follow you on the app formerly known as Twitter, and they have notifications on for you, they'll actually get a notification when he goes live because you stream there. Well, there you go. Okay. That's not a bad idea. Backo says nothing better than an ill-gotten duffel bag of cash. Yes, indeed. That is until the FSB finds it. And then it's oopsie, 6.5 years of pretrial detention. I bet, we talk about how well secrets are kept in Scientology. I bet almost not a soul knows that the head of the St. Petersburg org was in prison for 6.5 years waiting trial. I mean, back in the day, that is something that Miscavige would have circled the wagons for. That there would have been marches. Now, maybe not in Russia, because you don't want to organize a march in Russia. But if that was happening in Germany, if the head of the German organization was being held in jail for years for pretrial detention, you better believe Miscavige would have publicized this to the entire Scientology world. He would have raised tens of millions of dollars on the back of this persecution. He would have organized marches and protests just around the clock. It would have been the biggest thing happening in Scientology. I bet nary a soul in Scientology knows the head of the St. Pete org was held in prison for pretrial detention. I mean, assuming that I understood the article correctly, which I think I did. Ren Listen says, oh, that is the bug out bag that I misplaced. Yes. If you're going to stick it up in the ceiling, finders keepers, possession is 9/10 of the law. Janice Haldeman, welcome as a new channel member. Sarah Bauman, can you link the article in the description? I certainly will. Thank you very much. Sarah S. says, I am also surprised that there's some level of separation of powers in the Russian government. I wonder how much we can trust that info, if any of it came directly from government sources, though. I'll tell you what, Chris Owen, to call Chris Owen as a historian is to do a disservice to Chris Owen. I can promise you this. If Chris Owen puts it into writing, it's been researched 6 ways to Sunday. Chris Owen is not some amateur writer, some amateur historian. Again, to call him a historian is to do him a disservice. This guy is next level when it comes to research and verification and sources. So if the Russian government puts it out, maybe it's not true. But if Chris Owen writes it, it's true. How's that for an endorsement? And while I'm at it, let me just give his book another plug. One of the books Chris Owen has written is Ron the War Hero, the true story of L. Ron Hubbard's calamitous military career. Okay, let's go back to a little more comments. Sarah S. Haha, even the Russians think the LAPD is corrupt. I think it's actually Chris Owen who is saying that the LAPD is corrupt. Paul Livingston gifted 5 channel memberships. Thank you, Paul. That's very kind of you, and I appreciate it. Let's see. What is on Aaron's shirt? Well, we're going to have to ask Serge, because Serge is the one who gave me this sweatshirt. I know at a glance it looks like Leah Remini. It's not Leah Remini. But this is the shirt I was wearing in LA when I got arrested, and I haven't worn it since. So I threw it on today just for the heck of it. All right, let's see. Oh, look at this. Rena Faye Scotland. Confident Chris just got a great interview with a young man who wanted to talk. The security guard tried to stop him, but he says he was talking. Then a few minutes later, a girl came out and took him away. Well, that's great, Rena. I'll try to find that later. Pursuit Northwest. I was a Sea Org child auditor, and all I got was this lousy $130,000 freeloader debt. Yep, it's true. Thank you for the super chat. Bakes with butter. The FSB might have confiscated all the compromat collected from the audits. I don't know if that's a real word that I've never heard before, or if that's a typo. But I think I know what you mean. Oh, so they confiscate all the compromising information that was in the auditing files. Hey, I mean, that doesn't seem too far-fetched. Hannah Banana, I've also been around since your videos about 8 years ago. Congratulations on the foundation. We are all so proud. Thank you very much. It's one of the reasons I changed my little intro, and I'm just playing with it for now. Every day is a great day to leave the cult of Scientology. Remember, guys, if anyone needs help leaving Scientology, you hear of anyone, you know of anyone, please don't hesitate to direct them to the SPTV Foundation. Lovely Lady P-Squish. Lovely Lady P-Squish. Welcome, Lovely Lady P-Squish, as one of the newest channel members. All right, guys, that's it for now. I still got more coming later this evening, though. So, guys, keep checking back. If you don't get notifications, go ahead and hit that notification bell anyway. Hit that subscribe button anyway. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe